Hello and welcome to tonight's new patient class. Thank you so much for jumping on this video. It is super important because as a new patient here at Northwood Chiropractic and Wellness, I want to give you an extra 15 minutes just to go in depth of what it is that we do here. So when it comes down to it, I mentioned this in your day 2, the brain controls everything. Okay, I don't want you to forget that tonight. The brain controls everything, controls every muscle, controls every single organ of your body as well. So that's why, again, we have those posters around strategically in our office because we don't want you to forget that your brain is the most important thing in your body. So I'm going to start off with this. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a brain problem or a back problem? You've probably already answered that pretty quick. You're probably saying, give me the back problem. I'll take that, no issue of the day. So I just want to take time tonight to really explain how the two are connected. So in this study, they used a PET scan. So they scanned participants' brain before and after a chiropractic adjustment. And they did one adjustment and that's it. And they noted that the brain started to change. They noticed that the major areas of the brain were changing positively, and that participants just from one adjustment talked about how their stress levels reduced, that their perceived pain also reduced in the moment, and that they just felt a euphoric feeling of improved quality of life. Remember, that's one adjustment. That's one adjustment, and they're not even touching the brain, they're adjusting the neck, but yet they found that there's some changes that a neck adjustment can happen. And that's because the back or your spine and the brain, or otherwise known as your nervous system, are physically connected. There are actually 7 anchor points to keep your brain and your spinal cord tethered and within your spine itself. So again, there are 7 connections that your body needs to have just in order to make sure that everything is functioning properly within your brain and your nervous system. The challenge lies in this. What happens if there are more points of that? What happens if the bone changes? What happens if the disc changes? Now, we've already done your review of findings. I've already displayed out where a lot of your source is coming from, but the question is always, how did it get there? So there's multiple ways that this scar tissue, which is another anchor point that's pulling at your spinal cord, that's pulling at your brain, can develop. So we look at individuals that sit a lot. So currently a number of people are working from home. That can change in the future, but just sitting, I should say. Sitting is one cause. On top of that, what if there was an injury to the area? So what if you actually did have some trauma when you came in? That's another way that's also able to develop some scar tissue in this area. And on top of that too, what if it was an old injury that would never healed? And that this too much motion that you got, your body started to react, and then it started to stiffen up, started to lay down some arthritis in the area, scar tissue in the area, and affecting the disc and the bone. So that's why I always make sure I go through the day 1, day 2 process, because I want to assess and evaluate what it is going on with your body. So you've probably heard me talk about, hey, we have inflammation in this area. There's muscles that just aren't working here. Maybe we're working on your glutes and your glutes just aren't working. Well, we'll get to that as explaining as to why, but it all comes down to this. As a chiropractor, again, I'm so focused on making sure that you have a healthy spine and a healthy brain with that. So whenever we see a subluxation or a rotation within the joint of your spine, that joint isn't moving anymore. It's fixated. It isn't moving mechanically the way it's supposed to. And that's where a lot of problems start. You just aren't moving right. And when that rotation or change happens, it changes the way the brain is able to send and receive that message. Now, remember we talked about every muscle has to be controlled by the nervous system. So if that nerve going to the muscle isn't working, that's where we see weakness in the area. That's why it's, hey, I'm not feeling any muscle in this area because it's gotten smaller, it's weaker. And with that weakness, now you're taking other tissues and they can't be stressed enough to be able to be healthy, that they can't be able to keep your disc in the right spot, that maybe it's adding too much pressure. So after we see some rotation or loss of movement to a part of your spine or multiple parts of your spine, Then we see some weakness to that muscle because it's not getting the message it needs from the brain. Then it starts to make the connective tissue weaken as well. And that's where we see mechanical forces loading into and shrinking that disc. So degeneration is super common. 1 in 3 teenagers at the age of 15, 1 in 3 have observable disc degeneration. Now, with every decade, it increases in prevalence. And so right now, most current data is if you're 50 years old, 85% of 50-year-olds have that disc degeneration. We thought it was attributed to aging, that as you get older, things just don't move as well and that's it. But what we actually found is it came from a long time ago. There was a change to the mechanics of your spine. You just weren't moving right. The brain wasn't sending that signal to muscles and to the connective tissue to help protect that important disc. Because again, that disc is mostly water. It's there to protect the bone above from the bone below. Now, if we note that and we see that degeneration of the disc or thinning the disc is happening, what will happen next is that bone will start to degenerate. And this is where I mentioned the back and the brain are physically connected. So what happens then, that bone, if it starts to degenerate, actually starts sliding back and pressing into the spinal cord. And then that's ultimately where we really see some consistent neurological or brain issues, and they can't be relieved until there's some type of surgical decompression or surgical intervention. So that's why we always make sure we let people know that the health of your brain and the health of your back is super important. So that's why when I go into care, and now that we're starting our care up with you, this is how we plan it out. You got to make sure you show up to every single visit, because what we're going to do is we're going to adjust an area that isn't moving. It may pop, it may not pop, but the goal is to take that scar tissue that's building up there, that's actually changing the way that that nerve is able to feed to the muscle, that's weakening the area and causing these symptoms to progressively get worse or not change. We're going to adjust the area. We're going to break up that scar tissue, that injury that's been built up around that area. And from that, just from one adjustment, we are going to see some changes. But the problem is it's going to be temporary. Those temporary changes, because again, there's muscles that are weak. They're pulling you in the wrong spot. There's connective tissue. It's just not strong enough yet. So that's why every adjustment that we do builds off the next. That's why I always say that healing takes time, because we're working with the natural properties of your own body and how quickly it takes to heal. First, we got to find the source, we got to treat the area, and we have to be consistent with it. So that's why we make sure people know the one thing you can do to actually help and speed up the process, do your at-home homework every day. That's the biggest difference I see in care on a clinical setting. Individuals who are consistent, that they do their prescribed homework every single day, have better outcomes and faster recovery with their care than those who don't do it at all or do it as they need to. And again, the problem is, well, I'm feeling it this way, but what's possible in the future? Now, I took all of these just from simple testimonials. These are patients who are actually describing of what care is like here and what they were able to get out of it outside of just their pain, because pain is one thing. We're talking about moving better. We're talking about functioning better. So a number of individuals have mentioned they stand taller, they look better. They're able to walk into a room and they present themselves better. And also those weekend warriors, maybe when the summer hits and it's hit that yard work, it's, hey, before I would do the lawn, it would take me an hour and a half. I would always have to take breaks. Now I have the energy. And not only do I have the energy to do it all just in one time, I now have the ability to just, hang out for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and now I can go back out and do more. Or I can then socialize with friends that night, where before I would just have to tell people I'm too tired. So we're seeing improved recovery time, more energy. And for individuals who absolutely, they are all about their discomfort just got in their way of focus. We're seeing improved mental focus and clarity. They're able to think better. They're able to retain more. They're not as forgetful as they were before. And it's actually increasing their productivity at work and at home. And it's actually providing better relationships. How awful is it when we're in pain, we're in discomfort, or we're having any type of symptom that now it actually starts to affect our relationships, not just friends and family, but what about our most intimate relationships? What if it's a partner, a spouse? When our pain hits, how much does it actually start to affect the other person in our lives? So we noted that just with individuals who not just focus on their pain, but really focus on getting to the target of how their body's able to move better, function better, it's having that positive effect on their relationships and an overall an impact on all aspects of their life. This sounds great, right? Sounds like this has got to be amazing. This is called normal. This is how your body's supposed to function. That's why we went through the day 1, day 2 process, because I found the source of why this is happening. We found out where exactly. Now, here's what the possibilities are. Now, I leave it up to you, and you chose this path. So it takes time. I want you to be consistent with everything, because absolutely healing takes time. The natural properties of your own body takes time, and every adjustment builds off the next. And then we already did look at the evidence and research. Your back health impacts your brain health. Because remember, the brain controls everything. There are 7 anchor points that are supposed to be there. There are curves that we want to see because that reduces tension on the brain, because ultimately what we're looking for, improved function of your brain, improved function in everyday life. So moment you start feeling good, we're not going to release you. Again, we're focused on moving better, really getting down to the source of everything. And that's why you chose this path. Because again, the back and the brain are physically connected. Don't ever forget that as we go through care. So thank you so much for jumping on tonight's new patient class. Hopefully this was able to give you just a little bit more information about what it is and the totality of your care that we're looking to do as an impact. If you ever have any questions, just ask me at your next appointment and I'll do my best to answer them that same day. Now, if you're looking to connect with us, here's some other ways you can reach out to us through social media. We are on Facebook, so please give our Facebook page a like, as well as Instagram, because on those 2 pages, that's where we do a lot of promotion of either events, either giveaways, or any type of other maybe outside events that we have with some of our wellness partners. As well as that, if you're that professional individual and you love LinkedIn right now, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And as well, if you're looking for just a little bit more information, every week I do my best to send out a premier chiropractic blog where we'll talk about something that has to do with chiropractic care or even just health and wellness in a general setting as well. So please go to my website, northwoodchiromn.com/blog to see all that. But the most important thing is I'm excited because absolutely I believe that we'll be able to help you out here. So thank you so much for jumping on tonight's new patient class. I'll see you at your next appointment. Have a great night.